From a whiskey bottle home to a future murderer's guest appearance, the magical world of I Dream of Jeannie was filled with secrets that were far stranger than any genie's wish. While fans swooned over Barbara Eden's midriff-baring costume and Larry Hagman's befuddled astronaut, behind the scenes lay a treasure trove of bizarre production mishaps, censorship controversies, and cast conflicts that would make even a 2,000-year-old genie blush. Here are the 15 weird facts you didn't know about I Dream of Jeannie, 1965. Fact 1. Jeannie's iconic bottle was a Jim Beam whiskey decanter. When viewers first saw Jeannie's ornate mystical bottle in 1965, they probably assumed it was some exotic antique or a specially crafted Hollywood prop designed to house a 2,000-year-old genie. The reality was far more humble and surprisingly practical. The show's most recognizable prop was actually a 1964 Christmas edition Jim Beam bourbon whiskey decanter that originally sold in liquor stores for just $5.99. The story of how this ordinary whiskey bottle became television magic begins with either creator Sidney Sheldon or first director Gene Nelson walking past a liquor store window. According to show folklore, one of them spotted the distinctive Jim Beam decanter and immediately knew it was perfect for housing their beautiful genie. The bottle's unique shape, with its bulging base section, narrow neck, and flared opening, looked exactly like what audiences would expect from a genuine genie's home. What transformed this simple bourbon container into an Arabian masterpiece was the work of the show's talented art department. They carefully painted the clear glass bottle with intricate Middle Eastern design motifs over a purple base paint layer. The artists added stained glass window patterns to the ridged base section, decorative curlicues and arches along the narrow flask portion, painted gemstones on a small bulging ring, and finished it with more ornate arches around the cylindrical neck area. These 1964 Jim Beam Christmas decanters were part of a popular trend during the 60s, when liquor companies produced special holiday editions in decorative bottles. The original bourbon inside was called Beam's Choice Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, but once the art department worked their magic, it became home to the most famous genie in television history. The transformation was so convincing that for decades, fans had no idea they were looking at a repurposed whiskey bottle. Today, these original 1964 Jim Beam decanters have become highly collectible, with talented artists creating their own genie bottle replicas, and original show bottles selling at auction for tens of thousands of dollars. Fact 2. The belly button controversy was created by the media. One of the most famous stories about I Dream of Jeannie involves Barbara Eden's belly button being strictly forbidden from appearing on television due to censorship rules, but the truth behind this controversy reveals how the media can create problems that never actually existed. When the show first began filming in 1965, NBC executives had no concerns whatsoever about Eden's midriff-baring genie costume, and her navel occasionally appeared on screen without anyone at the network batting an eye. The entire belly button scandal started when a writer from The Hollywood Reporter visited the set during the show's early episode. This reporter walked directly up to Barbara Eden and made an unusual request, asking her to show him her belly button because he claimed he didn't believe she had one. Eden was taken aback by the strange question and jokingly responded that she would have to charge him for a peek, playfully raising the price each time he kept asking. What began as Eden's light-hearted response to an inappropriate question quickly spiraled into something much bigger when the reporter decided to write an article about Jeannie's supposedly hidden navel. Other media outlets picked up on the story, and suddenly Barbara Eden's belly button became a topic of national fascination. The situation reached such absurd heights that NBC's comedy show Laugh-In planned to do a special sketch where they would dramatically unveil her belly button to the world. Faced with this unexpected media circus, NBC executives finally decided they needed to take action and created formal rules about covering Eden's navel. Producer George Schlatter's plan to premiere her belly button on television frightened the network executives so much that, according to Eden, he had never seen so many suits sitting around a table in his life discussing someone's anatomy. From that point forward, the network became very strict about keeping her belly button covered, even going so far as to have someone constantly on set monitoring her costume. The irony of this manufactured controversy becomes even more apparent when you consider that other shows on the same network were showing far more revealing content without any censorship concerns. Fact 3. Barbara Eden was pregnant and covered up for 10 episodes. Barbara Eden's timing couldn't have been more challenging when it came to starting her career-defining role as Jeannie. On the exact same day that NBC officially picked up I Dream of Jeannie for its first season, Eden discovered and confirmed that she was pregnant with her first child. Rather than replace their newly cast star, the show's producers decided to work around her condition using creative costume design and clever filming techniques. The solution involved dramatically altering Jeannie's iconic costume for the first 10 episodes following the pilot. While Eden's midriff-baring Jeannie outfit became one of television's most recognizable looks, viewers during those early episodes saw a very different version of the character. The costume department added multiple layers of veils, extra chiffon fabric, and flowing materials to completely conceal Eden's growing belly as her pregnancy progressed through the filming schedule. Eden later described the experience with characteristic humor, saying she looked like a walking tent during those episodes. The producers had to get creative with camera angles, positioning, and the sheer volume of fabric draped around her midsection to maintain the illusion that Jeannie still had her trademark figure. Larry Hagman, who played Major Nelson, revealed in interviews that the production team worked frantically to film 10 episodes back-to-back as quickly as possible because Eden was getting bigger and bigger, requiring the costume department to keep adding more veils and decorative elements to hide her condition. The baby's father was Michael Ansara, Eden's first husband at the time, who was also a stage, screen, and voice actor. Interestingly, Ansara later appeared on the show itself, playing multiple characters including the Blue Djinn and King Kamehameha in different episodes. The pregnancy cover-up was so successful that many viewers never noticed the dramatic difference in Jeannie's costume during those early episodes, and it wasn't until years later that Eden publicly discussed how the production accommodated her pregnancy while maintaining the show's magical premise. Fact 4. Larry Hagman nearly got replaced by Darren McGavin. Behind the scenes of I Dream of Jeannie, Larry Hagman's behavior became so problematic that NBC producers seriously considered firing him and replacing him with veteran actor Darren McGavin, who was already being lined up to take over the role of Major Anthony Nelson. Hagman's difficulties on set stemmed from a combination of personal struggles and his decision to quit smoking and amphetamines simultaneously during the second season, and physically ill. The situation became particularly challenging when Hagman's mood swings and demanding personality began affecting the entire production. He was known for being a perfectionist who insisted on long rehearsals and constant script rewrites, which didn't endear him to the show's writing team or crew members. His erratic behavior reached a breaking point when he tried to silence a loud air conditioner on set using a fireman's axe, accidentally cutting off electricity to the entire soundstage in the process. Producer Sidney Sheldon approached Barbara Eden to discuss the possibility of replacing Hagman with McGavin, explaining that Larry was troubled and difficult to work with. Eden's response was both diplomatic and firm, telling the producers that while Hagman couldn't get along with people, they could work around that personality flaw. She specifically told them, "I think it would be foolish to switch him in the middle of the show, believing that Hagman was the best person for the role despite his personal challenges." Eden's intervention proved crucial in saving both Hagman's career and the show's continuity. The producers had already written out a storyline where Tony Nelson would lose Jeannie and McGavin's character would find her, essentially creating a smooth transition to a new leading man. However, studio executives ultimately agreed with Eden's assessment that Hagman was too valuable to replace. Years later, Hagman expressed his gratitude to Eden for her support during this difficult period, telling her, "Thank you for saving my house," acknowledging that losing the role would have been financially devastating for him at the time. Fact 5. The show's title comes from a 19th-century song. While most people assume that I Dream of Jeannie was simply a clever play on words created by the show's writers, the title actually has much deeper historical roots that connect it to American musical heritage from over a century earlier. The phrase, "I Dream of Jeannie," is the exact opening line of a popular parlor ballad composed in 1854 titled "Jeannie with the Light Brown Hair," written by Stephen Foster, one of America's most famous 19th-century songwriters. Stephen Foster was known for creating some of the most enduring songs in American popular music, including classics that are still recognized today. His ballad about Jeannie was a sentimental love song that became widely popular in parlors and drawing rooms across America during the mid-1800s, when families would gather around pianos for evening entertainment. The song told the story of a man longing for his beloved Jeannie, making it a perfect romantic reference for a television show about a man who becomes enchanted with a magical woman. When creator Sidney Sheldon was developing the concept for his new sitcom in the early 1960s, he drew inspiration from this classic American song for his title. The connection wasn't accidental or coincidental. It was a deliberate choice that linked the show to a piece of American cultural history that many viewers would have recognized, even if they didn't immediately make the connection. This gave the series an extra layer of meaning that went beyond the simple wordplay between Jeannie and Genie. The reference to Foster's song also added a romantic and nostalgic quality to the show's premise, suggesting that Major Nelson's relationship with his Jeannie had the same kind of dreamy, longing quality that characterized the original ballad. By borrowing from this well-known piece of Americana, Sheldon created a title that worked on multiple levels, as a description of the show's fantasy elements, as a play on the main character's name, and as a subtle nod to a beloved piece of American musical tradition. Fact 6. Phil Spector guest starred before his murder conviction. One of the most unsettling guest appearances in I Dream of Jeannie's history involves a famous music producer who would later become known for something far more sinister than his work in the recording studio. In the fall of 1967, Phil Spector appeared as himself in the third season episode titled Genie, the Hip Hippie, playing a record producer who listens to Genie's magically created rock group decades before he would be convicted of murdering actress Lana Clarkson. At the time of his appearance on the show, Spector was at the height of his career as one of the music industry's most sought-after producers. He had created the famous wall of sound recording technique and had produced countless hit records for major artists including the Ronettes, Ike and Tina Turner, and the Beatles. When the show needed a credible record executive to evaluate Genie's blink-together band, Spector was considered the perfect choice because of his reputation and influence in the music world. During his scene on the show, Spector was game for poking fun at himself and the entire music industry. His introductory lines showed him on the phone with an unnamed artist, telling his client that despite the song having a very weak bridge, awful tempo, and lyrics that stink, he still had another smash hit on his hands. This self-deprecating humor made his appearance memorable for viewers who understood the inside joke about how the music business operated. Strangely, there was a continuity error in the episode's credits that listed Spector as playing a character named Steve Davis, even though Genie specifically addressed him by his real name throughout the scene. In 2003, Spector's life took a tragic turn when actress Lana Clarkson was found shot to death in his mansion. After a lengthy legal battle, he was convicted of second-degree murder in 2009 and sentenced to life in prison, making his lighthearted appearance on the family-friendly sitcom seem eerily out of place in hindsight. Fact 7. Multiple bottles were used and frequently broken, creating the magical smoke effects that made Jeannie's appearances and disappearances so memorable. Came at a significant cost to the show's most important prop, with production crews going through an estimated 12 different bottles throughout the series' 5-year run. The constant damage occurred because the special stunt bottle used for the smoke sequences couldn't withstand the intense heat and harsh chemicals required to produce Jeannie's signature billowing clouds. The production team had to maintain several different versions of Jeannie's bottle to handle various filming needs. For the pilot episode alone, multiple bottles served different purposes. One was drilled through the bottom specifically for creating smoke effects, while another was used for the scene where the bottle rolls across the sand and slips into Tony's pack. 2 additional bottles were designated for promotional tours to kick off the first season, and yet another bottle was reserved for regular first-season production filming. The stunt bottle bore the brunt of the punishment during filming, as it was repeatedly exposed to the heat and chemical reactions necessary to create the dramatic smoke effects that viewers associated with Jeannie's magical transformations. The combination of high temperatures and corrosive chemicals proved too much for the glass to handle repeatedly, causing frequent breaks that required constant replacement with newly painted bottles. Each time a bottle broke, the art department had to carefully recreate the intricate Middle Eastern designs, ensuring that the replacement looked identical to maintain continuity between episodes. This process became so routine that the production crew always kept backup bottles ready, knowing that the next smoke sequence might destroy their current stunt bottle. Barbara Eden was fortunate enough to keep the final color stunt bottle used on the last day of filming the series finale, which was given to her by her makeup artist after the show ended. According to various interviews and DVD releases, other cast members also received bottles as keepsakes, with Bill Daly owning an original bottle, and Larry Hagman also reportedly keeping one as a memento of their time on the show. Fact 8. Larry Hagman found out about cancellation from a security guard. Larry Hagman discovered that I Dream of Jeannie had been canceled after 5 seasons in what might be the most awkward and Hollywood-typical way imaginable, through a casual conversation with a studio security guard he already knew the news. After the 5th season wrapped in 1970, Hagman decided to take a well-deserved vacation in South America, completely unaware that NBC had made the decision not to renew the show for a 6th season. When Hagman returned from his South American trip, he had every reason to believe that I Dream of Jeannie would continue production as it had for the previous 5 years. The show had been a steady performer for NBC, consistently drawing audiences and maintaining its place in the network's lineup. With no official word about cancellation reaching him before his departure, Hagman naturally assumed he would be returning to work as Major Anthony Nelson for another season. The reality hit him when he arrived at the studio lot with the simple intention of retrieving some personal belongings that he had left behind in his dressing room. As he approached the studio gates, the security guard on duty recognized him and made what seemed like innocent small talk. However, during their conversation, it became clear that the guard was surprised to see Hagman there, since I Dream of Jeannie was no longer in production. This casual encounter with the security guard became the moment when Hagman learned that his television career's most significant role had come to an end without any formal notification from the network or production company. The awkwardness of the situation was compounded by the fact that the guard seemed to assume Hagman already knew about the cancellation, making the revelation even more uncomfortable for the actor. This incident perfectly captured the sometimes impersonal nature of the television industry, where major career decisions affecting actors' lives could be communicated through chance encounters rather than official channels or professional courtesy calls from network executive. Fact 9. The show shared sets and props with Bewitched. Despite being positioned as rival magical sitcoms on competing networks, I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched actually had much more in common behind the scenes than most viewers ever realized, sharing not only the same production company, but also sets, props, and key crew members throughout their overlapping runs. Both shows were produced by Screen Gems, which made it economically sensible to maximize resources by having the two productions share facilities and materials at the studio. The most notable example of this resource sharing was the house set used for Dr. and Mrs. Bellows, which was actually the exact same interior set that viewers saw as the Stevens family home on Bewitched. This meant that the living room where Samantha Stevens practiced her witchcraft was transformed into the residence where Dr. Bellows would return home frustrated after another failed attempt to prove that something supernatural was happening at Major Nelson's house. The shared set was simply redressed with different furniture and decorations to create the illusion of two completely separate homes. The set sharing extended beyond just the Bellows house, with many other interior and exterior locations being used by both productions. This practical arrangement allowed Screen Gems to get double the use out of expensive set construction while maintaining the visual quality that both shows required. The Screen Gems sets for I Dream of Jeannie and Bewitched were located right next to each other at the studio, making it even easier for crews to move props and equipment between the two productions as needed. Perhaps most importantly, both shows shared Dick Albane, the special effects expert who was responsible for creating the magical illusions that made both series possible. Albane worked on both shows for quite a while, developing the techniques that brought Jeannie's blinking magic and Samantha's nose-twitching spells to life on screen. His expertise in creating believable magical effects was crucial to the success of both series, and his work helped establish the visual language that audiences expected from supernatural sitcoms of the 1960s. Fact 10. An elephant once broke wind on Larry Hagman. One of the most embarrassing and humorous incidents during the filming of I Dream of Jeannie involved Larry Hagman getting an extremely unwelcome surprise from a four-legged guest star that seemed to have its own opinion about his acting abilities. During the filming of an episode that required the use of a live elephant on set, Hagman made his displeasure about working with the large animal very clear to the production crew, voicing his concerns about having such an unpredictable creature so close to the actors. As Hagman stood near the elephant, continuing to protest its presence on the set and expressing his discomfort with the arrangement, the massive animal apparently decided to make its own statement about the situation. At the exact moment when Hagman was voicing his objections, the elephant lifted its tail and broke wind directly at the actor, covering him completely in what must have been an overwhelmingly unpleasant experience. Hagman later recounted this incident in his memoir titled, "Hello, Darlin', Tall and Absolutely True Tales About My Life," where he described the moment with characteristic humor and self-deprecation. He wrote about how the elephant was positioned right next to him during the scene, and just as he was protesting the animal's presence, it lifted his tail and broke wind, literally all over me. The timing couldn't have been more perfect from a comedic standpoint, though it was undoubtedly mortifying for Hagman at the time. What made the incident even more amusing was Hagman's philosophical reaction to the embarrassing situation. Rather than simply being angry or disgusted, he wondered aloud whether this was the elephant's honest critique of his performance, writing, "Perhaps that's what the elephant thought of my acting." This self-aware response showed Hagman's ability to find humor even in the most uncomfortable and undignified moments, turning what could have been just an embarrassing accident into a memorable anecdote that perfectly captured the unpredictable nature of working with animal actors in television production. Fact 11. Barbara Eden worked with a real lion Hagman refused to meet. During the first season of I Dream of Jeannie, one episode featured a scene with a real lion, which created a memorable behind-the-scenes drama that perfectly illustrated the different personalities of the show's two leads. Barbara Eden, who considered herself somewhat of a lion expert after working with the big cats in previous film projects, understood the importance of establishing a relationship with the animal before filming began, while Larry Hagman wanted absolutely nothing to do with the dangerous predator. Eden knew from her previous experience that male lions were typically used for television and film work because they were generally lazier and less aggressive than females, making them safer to work with as long as proper protocols were followed. She understood that the key to working safely with a lion was to spend time getting acquainted with the animal before the cameras started rolling, allowing both the lion and the actors to become comfortable with each other's presence. When Eden approached Hagman to suggest they both go over and bond with their four-legged co-star, his response was immediate and emphatic. According to Eden's recollection of the incident, Hagman flatly refused her suggestion, telling her in no uncertain terms, "I'm not making friends with any effing lion." Despite Eden's attempts to explain that this bonding process was crucial for everyone's safety during filming, Hagman remained adamant about avoiding any interaction with the animal. The consequences of Hagman's refusal became apparent when it came time to film the actual scene. While Eden and the lion had developed a comfortable working relationship through their bonding session, the lion had no familiarity with Hagman whatsoever. As soon as the king of the jungle laid eyes on the unfamiliar actor, it let out what Eden described as an almighty roar that sent both Hagman and several crew members scrambling off the set in fear. This incident became one of Eden's favorite stories to tell about the unpredictable nature of working with animal actors and her co-star's sometimes stubborn personality. Fact 12. The first season bottle had a bourbon stopper. One of the most peculiar details about Jeannie's bottle during the show's first season involves the makeshift solution that Major Nelson used to cork his genie's home, which came from his own personal liquor collection, rather than any mystical or ancient source. According to the show's storyline, when Tony Nelson first discovered Jeannie's bottle on the deserted beach in the South Pacific, he removed the original stopper to release her from her 2,000-year imprisonment. But in his excitement and confusion over meeting an actual genie, he accidentally left that original cork behind on the sand. This oversight created a practical problem when Tony returned to Cocoa Beach, Florida with Jeannie and her bottle, because he needed some way to cork the container when necessary. Rather than searching for an authentic replacement or trying to recreate something that would match the bottle's ancient appearance, Tony improvised with materials he had readily available in his own home. He solved the problem by using a clear glass triangular stopper that he took from a 1956 Old Grandad bourbon bottle that was sitting in his liquor cabinet. This bourbon bottle stopper served as Jeannie's bottle cork throughout the entire first season of the show, creating an amusing contrast between the supposedly ancient and mystical nature of the genie's home and the very modern, very American piece of glassware that sealed it shut. The clear glass stopper from the Old Grandad bottle was distinctly different in appearance from what viewers might expect for such an exotic container, but it became a familiar sight for anyone who paid close attention to the bottle's details during those early episodes. The original stopper situation was eventually resolved in the show's continuity during the first episode of the second season, when Jeannie and Tony made a return trip to the same deserted island where they first met. During this visit, they were able to recover the original ancient stopper that had been left behind on the beach, allowing Jeannie's bottle to be properly sealed with its intended cork for the remainder of the series. Fact 13. Jeannie initially spoke Persian, not Arabic. When Barbara Eden first emerged from her bottle in the pilot episode of I Dream of Jeannie, the mysterious language she spoke to Major Nelson wasn't Arabic as many viewers assumed, but rather Persian, due to a practical problem that producer Sidney Sheldon encountered during the show's pre-production phase. Sheldon had originally planned for Jeannie to speak Arabic when she was first released from her 2,000-year imprisonment, which would have made perfect sense given her supposed origins in ancient Baghdad and the Middle Eastern mythology surrounding genies. However, Sheldon quickly discovered that finding someone who could teach Barbara Eden to speak Arabic phonetically was much more difficult than he had anticipated. Despite his efforts to locate an Arabic language tutor who could work with Eden and help her learn the pronunciations needed for her scenes, Sheldon was unable to find anyone suitable who was available to work within the show's tight production schedule and budget constraints. Faced with this unexpected obstacle, Sheldon had to make a quick decision that would allow filming to proceed on schedule. He turned to the University of California at Los Angeles, where he was able to find a professor who specialized in Persian language and was willing to work with the production. This UCLA professor became Barbara Eden's language coach, teaching her to speak Persian phonetically so she could deliver her lines convincingly without actually understanding the meaning of the words she was saying. The switch from Arabic to Persian was handled so smoothly that most viewers never noticed the difference, and many people continued to assume that Jeannie was speaking Arabic throughout the series. Eden worked closely with the UCLA professor to master the Persian pronunciations, ensuring that her delivery sounded authentic, even though she was essentially learning the lines as phonetic sounds rather than meaningful language. After Tony Nelson wished for Jeannie to speak English so they could communicate properly, the language issue became irrelevant for the rest of the series, but this behind-the-scenes compromise remained one of the show's lesser-known production secrets. Fact 14. The $6,000 color bottle set creaked constantly. When I Dream of Jeannie switched from black and white to color for its second season, the production team decided that Jeannie's bottle interior needed a complete makeover to take advantage of the new visual possibilities that color television offered. The result was an elaborate and expensive new set that cost $6,000 to construct, featuring lavender velvet upholstery, satin brocade pillows, and glass jewels embedded throughout the plexiglass structure to create a truly magical environment for the genie's home. While the new bottle set looked absolutely stunning on camera with its rich colors and luxurious details, it had one major problem that made filming inside it a constant challenge for the cast and crew. The entire structure was built using crescent-shaped segments of plexiglass that had been joined together with tape, and this construction method created a serious structural weakness that became apparent as soon as people started working around the set. The tape joints that held the plexiglass segments together were not strong enough to handle the normal vibrations and movements that occurred during filming. According to special effects expert Dick Albane, who worked on the show, the expensive bottle set creaked like an ancient one-horse shay whenever anyone moved near it or even breathed too close to the structure. This constant creaking made it nearly impossible to record clean audio during scenes filmed inside the bottle, and the noise threatened to ruin the magical atmosphere that the elaborate set was designed to create. The creaking problem was so severe that Albane had to use his expertise in what he mysteriously described as powder, wire, and electronics to find a solution, though he refused to reveal exactly which of these methods he used to fix the issue. The fact that a $6,000 set piece required emergency repairs just to function properly highlighted the sometimes hasty and impractical nature of television production during the 1960s, when elaborate visual effects were often achieved through creative but unstable construction methods. Fact 15. The wedding episode killed the show's magic. The decision to marry Jeannie and Major Nelson during the fifth and final season of I Dream of Jeannie proved to be one of the most controversial choices in the show's history, with both Barbara Eden and Larry Hagman recognizing that it would fundamentally destroy what made the series work in the first place. Eden was completely against the wedding episode from the moment NBC executives proposed it, understanding that the romantic tension between her Jeannie character and Hagman's astronaut was the driving force that kept audiences invested in their relationship week after week. Eden argued that marrying the characters would break the internal logic of the show, pointing out that genies supposedly couldn't be photographed, yet the wedding episode would require them to have wedding pictures taken. More importantly, she believed that Jeannie wasn't even human, making the marriage concept problematic from a continuity standpoint. But her biggest concern was that resolving the romantic tension would eliminate the fundamental dynamic that had made the show successful for 4 seasons. The network executives persisted with their plan despite the objections from both lead actors. Larry Hagman was equally opposed to the wedding storyline, telling producers that marrying the characters would end the ballgame and immediately beginning to look for new job opportunities. His opposition to the wedding plot became so intense that he stopped speaking to Eden and other cast members, flatly refusing to communicate with anyone involved in the production as his way of protesting the decision. NBC's publicity department made matters worse by staging a fake wedding ceremony for Eden and Hagman just 1 week before the wedding episode aired, inviting television writers from around the country to make the stunt appear more authentic. This publicity stunt backfired completely, as fans could tell the wedding was insincere and turned against both the characters and the actors. The audience reaction was overwhelmingly negative, confirming Eden and Hagman's predictions about the damage the wedding would cause to the show's appeal. I Dream of Jeannie was canceled shortly after the infamous wedding episode aired, bringing the series to an end after 5 seasons.